The Lewis River Trail number 31, on which Bolt Camp resides, is located in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, just 4 miles beyond the Eagle Cliff Bridge and store. More specific driving directions will be at the end. Let me start by saying that this is one of my favorite trails of all time. In fact, I return multiple times every year, and it's always just as refreshing. A sunny fall day probably tops my list for best seasons to visit, but I've done it in the sloppy spring rain as well. Catch the trailhead across the bridge from the parking area and be prepared for one of the prettiest forests you will ever encounter. Depending on how much steam you have in your legs, you could go all 10 miles on this trail to Lower Falls, but if nothing else, take the relatively easy 2.5 miles to the historic Bolt Camp and back for a mild and relaxing 5-mile day hike. The Lewis River will be your constant companion along this path, and there will be plenty of opportunities to dip your toes in the chilly water if you want. The forest itself is thick with moss and ferns, and so keeps its lovely green hue all year long. I believe these are some of the largest hemlocks and cedars I have ever seen in the Pacific Northwest. On this day, we enjoyed a very brief conversation with this brown squirrel, as well as a sleepy gardener snake. It was an unusual treat to spot this cow elk wandering along the river who never even seemed to notice our presence. If you'd like to step over into the backpacking world, this would be a great trail for a maiden voyage. It's mostly flat, and there are multiple established campsites along the way, including plenty of space at Bolt Camp. The 3-sided shelter itself was first built in 1931 and named for its main construction material, cedar bolts, which are wood blocks from which shakes were cut. It just so happens my grandfather was born on a local logging camp in 1917, so I always wonder if we have shared this space together, although 90 years apart. The structure was restored in 1991 and again in 2013 and offers a quaint pit stop for your hike. There are sleeping platforms inside if you're feeling brave. A stack of firewood is maintained up the hill behind the shelter, but please be conscientious of fire restrictions. We'd like this forest to stick around. If you decide to hike further from here, you will encounter more uphill climbs than you did in that initial 2.5-mile stretch, but the forest will continue to amaze you as you go. We hiked on for about another 1.5 miles to the speed trail turnoff before turning around and following the lazy river downstream. This trail gets my very first 5 out of 5 pine cone rating. The trailhead itself is easy to find with plenty of parking. The scenery never ends, and the trail is super knee and family friendly. My own parents did it just last year at 72 years old. Would you like to give it a try? Head east on Forest Road 90, either through Cougar or from Carson. Turn left on Forest Road 9039 and find the parking area within a mile. Bring your Northwest Forest Pass. There is no station here to buy a day pass, and there are no restrooms nearby. Please, 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 pack out your TP. If this forest is calling your name, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And stay tuned. My next review will be a doozy.